Apple Card is the credit card created by Apple. You earn 3% daily cash back up front when you use it to buy a new iPhone 15, AirPods, or any products at Apple. And you can automatically grow your daily cash at 4.15% annual percentage yield when you open a high-yield savings account. Apply for Apple Card in the Wallet app on iPhone. Apple Card subject to credit approval. Savings is available to Apple Card owners subject to eligibility. Savings accounts by Goldman Sachs Bank USA, member FDIC. Terms apply.
In sports, the scoreboard doesn't tell the full story, but Netflix does. Stories about dads who happen to be world-class quarterbacks and a battle for the heart, soul, and direction of the multi-billion-dollar business of F1. Whether you're a diehard fan or you're brand new, Netflix has the stories for every type of fan. You can watch these incredible sports stories like Quarterback, F1 Drive to Survive, Untold, and many more now on Netflix.
The following is a snippet of an exclusive members-only podcast episode for our Patreon, Chronicles Tifosi. Become a member at patreon.com/Serie A Chronicles for regular bonus episodes and content.
And they are more on the side of business than they are of sport. So they will help Juventus navigate through this. Of course, like we said, everything is so far reportedly and allegedly because nothing has come out yet. We don't know what the real situation is. And obviously one thing that we have to say as well is that now a new sporting investigation, the FIGC has launched a new investigation to look into this. And so has the European Commission for the Champions League. Obviously we have to figure out whether or not everything is legit, and an investigation must happen anyway. So over to you, Nikki. What do you think?
Yeah, just to sort of clarify on like the first part of what you said there, Mina, with the acquittal. So like to some extent, this is such a dense story to navigate because what you've got is a lot of different bodies all involved in the same sort of matter. So this story starts with Covisoc, which is a watchdog within Italian football, reporting to the Italian Football Federation, hey, we think this plusvalenza situation, the capital gains that are being reported are a bit fishy, and it should get looked into. Then the acquittal that you talked about, that's the sporting justice. So that process went through the sporting courts, which is sort of overseen by the Football Federation. And as Mina said, like the Football Federation said, like in the end, like you can't put an objective player on a footballer, which is true. In the modern market, people will pay what they're going to pay. And so that all is why that falls apart. Then the Turin prosecutors had sort of never got to the end of their investigations. And so what we've got to now is the point where they've got to the end of their investigations. They've closed up their investigation and they filed what they found to the FIGC, but also to the law courts. So as Mina said, the sporting investigation is going to get reopened in effect because they've provided some more information, which is about the contracts and the reporting of that for COVID. But there's also the criminal side of things, which is, I think, the much more complicated side of things and the bit where we probably have to tread most carefully in terms of what we can say, because it's very much at the beginning. Again, as Mina says, 12 people are sort of being charged. The charges that have been brought in this case are of false reporting, of balance sheets. There is accusations of market manipulation. There are accusations of false financial statements. They're very serious charges. And it's very much about how things are put down on the balance sheet and how finances are reported. Juventus absolutely defend themselves in all of this. Juventus have released a statement being very clear that they think that this is about accounting practices that they consider to be absolutely defensible. They think that what they've done is fine. And even though they are going to revisit last year's accounts, which they are going to do, they're going to refile last year's accounts, taking into account this new information, they still stand by what they did before. And they're just sort of doing this to, I guess, as they would frame it, that they're doing this to sort of be absolutely transparent rather than to have any sort of murkiness around them. I think, you know, you can't speculate as to what the outcome of this will be because it's a legal process. I think one thing that you do have to say, though, is this is not a decision that gets taken lightly. For the entire board to stand down, you know it's serious. At the very least, it's a serious case that they are taking very seriously, because there's no way on earth that Andrea Agnelli wants to stand down now, 1 year away from the club's centenary, at a time when, you know, he's sort of, yes, the club's gone through its wobbles recently, but I think he feels like he's the person who came in and and presided over a broadly very successful period. They did win 9 league titles in a row. And they did go to the Champions League final twice. They did do all this modernizing. They did get a Netflix series and an Amazon Prime series and all of these things. So it is a very serious case, and there's 2 very serious sets of proceedings to go ahead. The sporting side of it, again, as Mina's talked about, UEFA are now getting involved as well. But on the domestic side of it, the risk is fines and point penalties. On the UEFA side of it, the risk is, could they get thrown out of European competition? Because all of this stuff, if you've been reporting and I'll stress again, allegations not proven and denied, but if you are proven to have not looked after your books correctly, how does that knock on impact your financial fair play negotiations you've had with UEFA? So that's the side of things that UEFA are going to be most interested in and could have an impact on their European involvement. And the criminal side of things, who knows, depending on what's found, it could be anything. It could be fines, it could be jail time, it could be anything. So it's 3 separate threads almost, or at least 2, which is the football side and the criminal side. And then within the football side, you could split it into domestic consequence and European consequence. And again, you've got an allegation or several allegations, and you've got a club that denies them. And I think we've got to tread responsibly and carefully around that, because we can't speculate as to whether or not we think these things are going to happen. We can just tell you what the possible consequences are.
Absolutely. So as you know, with the directors, the likes of Arrivederci, who also resigned, has been asked to stay on to help the club navigate, the creation of a new...
We need a new board of directors.
New board of directors, thank you very much. And so he's going to be sticking around for a while. Obviously, Cherubini is still there. Max Allegri is still there. We did receive a wonderful message from one of our Patreon members, Michael Betts, and I'm just going to read it out to you. And he said, I subscribe to Serie Chronicles because I enjoy hearing Nikki and Mina's thoughts on football in general and Italian football specifically, but I have never felt better about my purchase than when I heard Nikki and Mina's episode about the faux woke virtue signalers. And that was in episode 1. It was a humble but powerful show and one of their best episodes, even though it was mostly about things other than on the pitch football. Yeah, we try not to talk too much about that, but obviously it's difficult to not do so with regards to this particular World Cup, considering how much of a center stage that it's taken, and rightfully so. But thank you guys for listening to that. It was interesting to have that debate as people who, as an Arab and transgender, it's a nice debate to have, and I'm glad that we got to have that. And I would have liked to see more of that, perhaps in other media.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate everyone's feedback on that. It's a strange thing. I've had to talk about this topic a few times the last few days, and it is really complicated for me because the World Cup, from a footballing standpoint, I think has been very entertaining. There's been lots of really fun games, and I think I sort of get frustrated at the same time at the idea that we just forget about the important stuff because the football's good as well. I think that's really important to not lose sight of deaths and people's lives as well, because in the end that is more important than football. But I also, having said all that, I really, as someone who's been a journalist for gosh, going on a decade and a half, I'm always much more comfortable observing and talking about things that involving reporting rather than being the one who talks about myself sometimes. So, when it's talking about things that affect you personally, it's a different thing. So I appreciate that you guys enjoyed that.
Become a member at patreon.com/Serie Chronicles for regular bonus episodes and content.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
We can stop HIV, Iowa.
One key step, getting tested for HIV.
An estimated 14% of people in Iowa living with HIV don't know their status. The CDC recommends everyone get tested for HIV at least once in their lifetime, or more often when needed.
So testing is important.
Yes! Testing is the only way to know your status. It's the first step in getting additional HIV prevention services or HIV care.
Find out more at stophiviowa.org.